All right, I'll go ahead and get started. And if other people want to join, that's great. And this will also be recorded so that it can be shared throughout the CES network as well afterwards. But thanks for joining today. My name is Dana Catron. I'm going to be talking to you today about the SBIR and STTR programs and how hopefully we can work together to help promote these to the people you work with out in the field. And so I'm representing Arrowhead Center. I'm the director of our NMFAST program, which provides SBIR and STTR support. And I'm also the director of operations for Arrowhead Center as a whole. And so I'm really excited to talk today about these, but before we get started on the programs, I just wanted to talk really quickly about the purpose of this and what we're hoping to get out of it. So obviously I'm hoping you'll become a little bit more familiar about the SBIR and STTR programs, and more specifically about the USDA SBIR program. And then about NMFAST at Arrowhead and how we can help any of your clients if they're interested in applying to these. We're really here, and when I say we, Arrowhead is here to support the really important work you are doing throughout New Mexico. And so we want to know how we can help you achieve your mission. How can we, we've got a lot of different programs that help support entrepreneurs, small businesses, things like that. And we're always open to helping them and helping you do that work. So please contact us, contact me if you have any questions. If you want to get connected more to some of our programs, we're happy to do that. So getting into the SBIR and STTR programs. So these are federally funded programs that were designed to support scientific excellence and, more importantly, technological innovation by putting research funds into small businesses who are developing these innovations and technologies. So the goal is really broadly to meet the federal R&D needs by providing research dollars to small businesses, to increase private sector commercialization of innovations, to stimulate technological innovation, and then to foster and encourage participation in innovation and entrepreneurship by socially and economically disadvantaged persons. So we really focus on serving underserved businesses with our programming. That's obviously not a requirement, but we really look at doing outreach to rural, to women-owned small businesses, to minority-owned small businesses, things like that. So why does the government participate in this? Why did they decide to set aside equity-free money for small businesses? They want to build a stronger economy for America. So the more that small businesses succeed, the more tax revenue there is, the more job growth, et cetera. And really, small businesses account for 44% of economic activity. So it's a pretty big percentage coming from these small businesses. The government is also really interested in building a stronger innovation pipeline. So compared to larger corporations and businesses, small businesses actually produce 16 times more patents per employee than those larger businesses. And they employ almost 40% of America's scientists and engineers. So a lot of the innovations and technologies are actually coming out of these small businesses. And one of the great things about them is they're a lot more flexible and agile than those larger companies and corporations, which is really advantageous. For the SBIR and STTR programs, there is a technical challenge focus. So agencies really want the business to solve a technical challenge with their product or their innovation. So with most of the agencies, and USDA is a little bit different, we'll get to that in a little bit, but if NSF can go out and buy something, they'll go out and do that, right? They want to look at things that are new, that are emerging, that haven't been tested or proven yet. So there needs to be a really compelling reason why these funds are the only path forward. And a lot of times it's because those companies are at such an early stage in technology or innovation development that they can't get funding elsewhere, right, to prove that out and to build the prototype, things like that. And then it forms a backbone for growth for that business. By solving that technical challenge, it also allows the business to look at other things like, can the product be made better by doing X, Y, or Z? Can they cut costs by doing X, Y, or Z? So they've developed these programs to help small businesses identify factors like that. There are 12 different agencies that participate in SBIR, and we say 12 different agencies. It's really 11 different federal agencies, 12 different departments, because under the Department of Commerce, NIST and NOAA are situated under DOC. And you'll see that the red ones are SBIR. So they're actually all SBIR, and then the gray blocks are STTR only. And we'll get into the differences between SBIR and STTR in just a little bit. I'm not going to go into detail on this slide. If you're interested, you can read this later. I'll be sending out the slide deck. But this kind of shows you, and I wanted you to have this as a resource if you're out in the field and somebody is interested in one of these programs. But really generally, these are the kinds of things that agencies fund or are interested in. And one of the things I really want you to take away from today is that just because you're working with a farmer who may be developing something that you think is very egg-based, that doesn't preclude them from applying to a different agency, because there's agencies like NSF who will also fund things like that. And what we'd like to talk about regarding DoD, you think of DoD and you think of the warfighter and weapons, things like that. But really, when you think more broadly about DoD, they have to fund cities, essentially. If you're thinking about a carrier, it's a city on the water. If you're thinking about what they're doing overseas, they have to provide medical. It's much broader than just weapon development. And so DoD funds a lot of things that you wouldn't typically think of, that aren't weapon based. So think really broadly about these. I would say when you're out in the field and talking to people, what you're probably going to come across the most is businesses that are eligible for USDA or NSF, just because of the industries and types of things we have going on in New Mexico specifically. But again, there are agencies that fund a lot of different things. So just keep that in mind. So there are similarities and differences between the agencies. We talk about the SBIR and STTR programs as kind of one program, but really each agency runs their SBIR program completely differently. So they may have a different process for submitting an application. The application requirements are often very different. They'll have different funding cycles, all of those different things. So some of the key similarities between all of them, they all require eligibility. So they have to be a small business. They have to be based in the United States, things like that. They all have a phase 1 and phase 2. So we'll get into this in a little bit, but these programs are what we call gated programs. And so you have to have a phase 1 before you can go to a phase 2 in most circumstances. They all require some level of technical writing. These are federal grant or contract proposal packages that they would be putting together. So there is some technical writing involved. We have programs that can help with that. I'll get to that in a little bit too. They'll all have budget requirements. So again, it's a proposal. They're going to want to know how you're going to spend those funds. And then last, they must solve a technical challenge. Whatever is being proposed must be innovative and really key. And this has come up more in the last few years, is this emphasis on commercial potential. So in the past, agencies were interested in commercial potential, but they didn't really focus on it so much until businesses were going into their phase 2 and phase 3 awards. And now they're really emphasizing it right up front in a phase 1. Some of the key differences, so the funding mechanism, there are grants and there are contracts. The big difference between the two are contracts are going to be very specific. So for example, DoD is a contract-based agency where they will say, we need a technology or innovation that can solve this problem, or for this. And so they're very, very specific. Whereas grants for like USDA and NSF, they're much broader. They say, we've got these funding priority areas, tell us what you've got. And there's a lot more leeway in what you can propose under a grant versus a contract. The funding levels also are quite a bit different. So generally for phase one, they'll be anywhere from 100K to 250K. And then about 300K to 1.5 million for a phase two. So quite a big difference in the amount that is being funded. Like I mentioned, the proposal package contents and requirements will vary based on the agency. And some agencies like DoD again, who have different service components, will have different requirements there too. So Army may want one thing and Air Force and Navy may want something else. And so that's really why we're here to help businesses navigate all of those different requirements based on who they're applying to. Funding windows, again, I mentioned this, those will differ. Some only release once a year. USDA is a really good example. And some will have up to 3 times a year. So DoD has 3 cycles per year. So depending on the size and what that agency is doing, they'll have different solicitation windows. And then lastly, we added this because it's really important. We really encourage small businesses to talk directly to the program managers, directors at SBIR agencies, but there are restrictions tied to that. So all of the agencies allow it, but some have restrictions on when you're allowed to talk to them. So again, we can help navigate that process as well. More agency differences. I won't go through the ones that I already explained, which actually I did in most of these, but we really just want to reiterate that while the program, it seems like it's one program, it's really 12 different programs. And so it's really important to be careful when you're looking at solicitations and things like that to identify all of those differences, because you can apply to more than one agency. So why should a small business pursue SBIR or STTR funding? If you're out talking to somebody and they say, oh, hey, we invented this thing, or I have an idea to do this, but I need funding to build a prototype or to do, to move it forward. These programs are the best source of early stage technology development funding that exists, period, because they fund at such an early stage in technology development or innovation development, and it's what we call non-dilutive funding. So it's risk-free dollars. It's not a loan. They're not going to have to pay the money back. It's equity free. So it's a great way, and it's a pretty substantial amount too. For phase one, I mean, the minimum amount is 100K. So it's a good chunk of change to get them going on developing that idea or innovation. And really it's because the government isn't interested in taking part of the business, or, they don't have an investor mindset. They're really looking at the broader picture of they want to spur commercialization and economic development. So it's again, the best source if you come across somebody who needs that startup capital to move their innovation or technology forward. And if they are, this may not apply so much to like USDA, NSF type projects, but for our DoD and some of the more really technology-based projects that we see, if somebody like DoD is the agency funding it, it puts them in a priority position for sole source sales. So that's another really, really great benefit of these programs. Once they're in, they're in. So like I mentioned earlier, it's a gated program. There are 3 different phases. Phase 1 is really that concept development. So you have an idea, you need to develop that concept. So that's what the phase 1 is designed for. Again, the amount varies, and usually it's over 6 to 12 months. So it's not a really long period of time. There's about a 15% success rate of submission. So these are very, very competitive programs to get into. If you get a phase 1, then you are then eligible for a phase 2. Something really key to consider with this is if you say get a phase 1 with NSF, you could get a phase 2 with USDA. So as long as you have that phase 1, you can do a phase 2 with another agency, as long as you're eligible for that phase 2 funding within, what their requirements are and what they're looking for. With phase 2, they're really looking at prototype development. So really developing that innovation or technology, and the funding level and the period of performance really reflects that, right? So it's usually about 24 months, so about 2 years, and it can be up to 1.5, 1.25 million, depending on the agency. You also notice that there's a much higher success rate of submission with the phase 2, and that's because you have to have a phase 1 before you can get a phase 2. So often the agencies really like your project and they invite you to do a phase 2, and so they want to continue that support. Phase 3 is the only phase that is not funded by the SBIR program. So it's a little confusing because we call it a 3-phase program, but really only the first and second phases are funded. But phase 3 is really considered your commercialization. So this is where you're out selling that product. So with the exception of if say you got your phase 1 and phase 2 at DoD may be the one funding your phase 3, but it wouldn't be through the SBIR, STTR mechanisms. It'd be through something else. So really, again, the backbone of these programs is innovation. They're looking for innovative things. And what I'd also like to really emphasize and have you take home today is innovation does not necessarily mean high tech. So it's not always technology development. SBIR funds have funded things like comic book development. So one business developed a innovative process for working with PTSD patients, and that was through creating a comic book, and that was funded by NIH. And so don't think that, oh, it's not high tech, it's not sensors, or something like that. That is not going to qualify. As long as you can show it's an innovative process and it's something the agency is interested in, it can get funded. Commercialization is the other piece to that. So these programs are really designed to spur commercialization. They want to move these technologies towards the market and not just have them shelved, right? And so the programs don't define how it needs to be commercialized, but the key is it should have the potential to be commercialized. So you will want to, the business will want to have a not necessarily clear market or strategy, but they're going to need to develop that in their proposal. And Arrowhead also has programs that can help do that too. So things like addressing pain points, showing gains, the value statement, things like that. And again, this didn't used to be as important in these programs. A couple of years ago, I'd say maybe 3 or 4 years ago, they really started emphasizing this commercialization piece during the phase 1. And then I just realized for some reason the slides got taken out, but I didn't really go over the difference between SBIR and STTR, so I'm going to talk to that really quickly. It's essentially the same programs, except STTR has an added requirement that the business has to partner with a research institution, and research institutions are organizations like universities. So New Mexico State, we are a research institution, any of the national labs, things like that. And so that's really the only difference. And then there's only 5 programs that participate in it. So, and I'm sorry, I don't know where that slide went. I'll make sure it's in the slide deck when I send this out. Okay, and then so going into the USDA SBIR program, because we think this is the one that you'll come in contact with the most and see the most with your work through CES. So USDA broadly, they support high quality research related to scientific problems and opportunities in agriculture. In the USDA program, they've got topics that deal with everything from ranching to forestry, food safety, resource conservation, things like that. Things you would see fitting under USDA. So what's really, really unique about the USDA program compared to all of the other SBIR programs or SBIR agencies is they have 2 topic areas that focus on impacts rather than innovations. So I know I just spent a lot of time talking about innovation and things like that, how it has to be new and emerging. USDA is great because they have topics that allow you to get funding for a product that is already launched. So it doesn't need to be in that kind of idea stage that other agencies are really looking for. So that's a really great benefit for small businesses who are looking to be funded by USDA. And then the other kind of unique thing about USDA is they don't have to be a company with a really, really long history or really deep pocketbooks or be formally incorporated. USDA is a lot more relaxed in terms of, who's on your team, things like that. Obviously, they'll still need to prove that they have the capacity to fulfill the project, but they don't look at that as critically as some of the other agencies. So again, like I mentioned, those 2 special topic areas make USDA really, really unique. They're called COTS, or commercial off-the-shelf technologies. And basically, if that business has a product, it's already launched, there's no technical risks left, and that's usually what you're trying to figure out with the phase 1 and phase 2. They can still participate based on the impacts that can be leveraged for rural areas and for small to mid-sized farms. So that's really important, especially for New Mexico, because we are mostly rural and we have a lot of small to mid-sized farms. So it's really great for our state. Some general information about the programs or about the USDA program. So they have 1 solicitation release per year. It's always in the summer. Sometimes the months vary a little bit. Sometimes they release closer to July, but usually it's open in August and then it closes in October. And then the phase 2, and when I talk about solicitation windows, I was talking about just phase 1. For phase 2, they usually open in December and then close in May. They do use grants.gov to submit their proposal packages. That's another really key difference between the different agencies is they'll use different submission portals. So, but USDA does use grants.gov, and this is pretty typical across a lot of the agencies, but while businesses can submit multiple phase 1 proposals, they can only have up to 2 awards at once. So the purpose in SBIR for USDA, they want businesses to solve a technical challenge or hurdle, obviously outside of those 2 special topic areas. So like the other agencies, there has to be a compelling reason why that funding is needed to move forward. There's got to be that technical risk. And then there needs to be significant commercial or societal benefit impact. So things like, does it have potential to disrupt the market? Is there a good product market fit? Is it going to remove barriers to entry for competition, things like that. And then this is just a chart version of kind of what I just talked about. But for phase 1, you're looking at 8 months, 100K. Phase 2 is 24 months at 600K. The allocation of award, SBC stands for small business concern. It has to be at least 67% awarded to the small business, and then up to 33% can be subcontracted out. For that phase 2, it's 50-50. So they could subcontract up to 50% of that work out. Okay, and now getting into our FAST program at Arrowhead. So how can we help businesses that you work with submit these proposals if they're interested? I'm not going to go through all of this. Again, I just wanted to give you a lot of background information so you have this as a resource for later. But we're now in our 6th year of funding. We're funded by the SBA to provide free SBIR and STTR support throughout the entire state. And so we've really grown in those 6 years. We currently have up to 231 clients. I think that's actually grown within the last 2 or 3 weeks. So we're continually growing. And we're really excited about the different programs and offerings that we have been able to provide. And we keep growing this every year. So some of the key things that we provide to small businesses for free, proposal development assistance. And this ranges depending on who we're working with, what their experience is, things like that. But we'll do everything from topic and agency matching to budget assistance to proposal writing assistance and everything in between. So as long as it has to do with putting together a proposal package, we will assist the small business with that. We also provide proposal package review. So we will pay outside reviewers, many of which review for the actual agencies, to review proposals for clients, which is really, really valuable. We tailor our services for each client, so we don't ever offer the same thing to each client. It really depends on what they need and how much assistance they need. So we really emphasize that custom support. We do have micro grants available that are up to $2,000 to help with proposal development and or conference travel. And so with these proposal packages, it's really, really advantageous to travel to the national conferences. And obviously with COVID, that kind of interrupted physical travel. But now that we're getting back into it, at these conferences, all of the agencies send reps to do one-on-one sessions and to speak on panels, things like that. And so we find that really valuable. We also offer free workshops and different kinds of engagement activities throughout the state. Obviously right now we're still completely virtual, but we're looking to slowly start doing things in person, which we're excited about. We have a suite of tools and resources available on our website. So we've created a really robust resource library of everything from templates to checklists to compliance matrices and everything in between that really help with proposal development. We also have a newsletter, a video series. One of the really unique things we started in the last couple of years is accelerators that are specific to SBIR. And so we have accelerators that are more general. They're usually about 5 weeks that just cover the programs and see if participants are a good fit. And then we have multi-week, usually 12-week agency-focused accelerators that are much, much more intense and end in a proposal submission. And so we actually have a USDA one coming up that I'll talk about in just a little bit. This slide, again, I'm not going to go into this too much, but what's kind of important that I'd like to highlight on this slide is our process. And so we usually say it takes between 100 and 120 hours to put together a full proposal package for a first-time applicant. And so this is a kind of visual representation on why it takes that long and why it takes so many hours, because there's a lot of different steps, a lot of forms, different things that need to be completed before submission. So if you have any questions on this, I'm happy to talk more about that. So again, with our SBIR accelerator, we've done eight cohorts to date. We've done agency focus and again, more general ones. We really try to hit the rural areas. This was really designed because we can't physically be everywhere at once and provide that really intense, sit down one-on-one support. This virtual setting allows us to do that virtually. And so we can have a lot more participation from businesses that are really rural. So that's been great. We're always looking to increase that. So quickly, in summary, we provide a lot of assistance. It just depends on the client and how much they need. We'll do whatever we can to make sure that they can submit a full proposal package. And again, we have this USDA ACSA cohort coming up. Applications are due June 25th. So if you know of anybody kind of working in this space who might be interested, this is a really great way to introduce them to the programs and get a really comprehensive education on how to put together one of these proposal packages. And then we have a start date of about July 14th. And what's interesting about these is we also bring in, so we'll have the program manager from USDA participating in the cohort. We bring in industry experts, things like that. So it's very interactive, and we try to, have it be really engaging so that it's not just us lecturing for 12 weeks straight. And I think that's it. So I don't know if there's any questions, but thank you again for taking the time to listen. I'll be sending out the slide deck after I add back in those slides that disappeared, and some more introductory materials too that you can feel free to share with your clients. Are there any questions?
And thank you so much. I a couple of questions.
Sure.
What are I'm just I'm probably there's others on the call today that would be able to have ideas better than mine. But I was just interested in kind of with the ag groups that we work with, etc. Have you all had some experience or some examples of working with New Mexico ag producers in the past on these projects, and what those examples might have been, just to kind of stimulate our thoughts a little bit?
So not too much and one of the reasons why we're really focusing on USDA this year is because New Mexico has barely any awards for USDA SBIR, which is really puzzling to us because we have so much ag and ag innovation going on in our state. And so we're working right now to really engage with those groups and find out why. A lot of it is they're not aware of the programs. So producers, and I come from an ag background, and as a producer, I wouldn't be trying to go after SBIR funds. I want to run my, my livestock production, right? And so that's what I'm going to be focused on. But and in that sense, if you encounter clients like that, where they do have something innovative that could be funded, but they don't want to pursue it themselves, we can also help there if they're interested in having their innovation move forward, but they don't want to do it themselves. We also help make those partnerships and things like that. So, but yeah, to answer your question, we have not worked very extensively with them, but we're making it a priority this year to do more of that.
Okay, and then you'll be sending us, and I'll be sure to get it out to all of our county offices, but you'll have a packet of material basically that our folks then could share with. I know I see John Garlish got his video on, so he's got a question, but maybe while I've got John on here, I'm sure if we could get that information out, at least to make folks know of the availability of the program, would certainly help. And then Dana, I might have missed it in the print. If a producer or group had an interest in pursuing this, but doesn't have much experience in the grant writing, do y'all provide some assistance in pulling that packet together, or is that pretty much up to the producer themselves?
Yep. So we'll help. We Arrowhead cannot write it. We can't write it, but we have that micro grant funding. We've got grant writers. We'll help make sure they have the support they need to put it together. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
And I joined late, so apologies for this. But if you could send out a general flyer with the announcement dates, I know at least to all the offices, that would be great for us to get the word out. A lot of times these deadlines come up, and even from the USDA, we get it the week before they're due, and it's like, oh, that's when it was coming up. So that would be great to have that. Secondly, for many of our producers, I'm going to speak for the Center North and maybe for the state. The grants.gov has been a bailiwick for them to navigate, and they really get confused. And also for the broadband access in many of our rural communities in town in Albuquerque is good, but some of them either they don't know how to work with grants or the USDA website, or they don't have enough bandwidth to get everything uploaded and timed out. And so that has been, I've heard both of those issues from producers. One, just getting the announcement. Secondly, getting a number or getting a code to get into the system appropriately. So I've seen
Sure.
many barriers to entry with that. And I've also heard some challenges with our tribal communities up north as well,
Yeah.
in that regard. So I just put that as a general, there could be a great workshop opportunity for A, extension, and B, from Arrowhead to really reach out to all of our rural areas on how to navigate that website platform or get the word out for those states. So I'll put
Yeah,
that
so
in generality.
we have two things that address it kind of right now that we've already implemented because of those exact challenges that we've heard of. So we have videos that walk you step by step through the grants.gov process for at least for SBIR. So that's something they could watch. Again, with the broadband, maybe YouTube is not the greatest. And the other is with our accelerators, and we can offer this outside of our accelerators too, is we will help submit those proposal packages. And so that's where when we implemented this, we thought, oh, maybe this might be too big brotherish for us to be this hands-on, and usually we do Zoom and they'll share the screen, but if broadband issues are, significant, we could definitely work something out where we can help that small business submit, because I know it's the worst thing if they spend all that time putting something together and then they get kicked out of the system or they can't submit it, right? And so we want to make sure that they have support the entire way, even up through that submission.
And follow-up question more on, be great to have an FAQ, or just if you send out a quick brochure of all your services, that will be great for us to relearn what those are. So appreciate that and know that exists. For funding for small businesses, I know hemp is going to be a big one, hemp processing, et cetera. Are those going to qualify for some of these from USDA programming?
So we will learn more. We have some, we're going to get together with the program officer, because I actually have another client who's looking at hemp for insulation, and so she's interested in our accelerator to do that. And so it's a little iffy because they are federal programs, right? And so federally they still don't recognize it as legal, but if it's hemp and not THC, there's that kind of delineation. And so we're trying to verify right now if that will be something we can do. So I'll make sure to let you know as soon as I hear if that, because that'll be huge. I know there's tons of people in New Mexico working on hemp related everything. So yeah, I'll let you know.
Thank you. Secondly, I know it's not very innovative, but food access and growing food and the capital outlay for many small farms is always great. How does beginning farmers work within some of the small business for growing food for greenhouses and value-added products, whether it be jams, jelly, salsas, or other things that they're trying to create, or is that just too generic for stuff?
Mostly too generic, but if, say, a salsa producer figured out a new way or a new, something, they developed something for their production line, right? That was new and innovative, that could count. Or even going back to hemp. So hemp has been around forever. People have been growing hemp forever, but we have a client who's looking at a really innovative way to process it to make insulation. And so she obviously wouldn't be doing the processing herself, but the innovative part is, how is she kind of disrupting what already exists or what doesn't exist, right? And so innovation is really broad in that sense, where a beginning farmer could, maybe they come up with a new way of like a new watering system that is innovative and not commercially available. That would count, and that'd be something USDA is very, very interested in. So so yes and no. I don't know if that answers your question, but
it helps a little bit. And what about either food aggregation or food distribution in some of the remote communities? Does that fall for small business development, or is that again too generic?
Same thing, it would depend. We do have, I'll send you information on, we have sprint accelerators that are more general business based, that all of those would qualify for and would be actually really good fits for. And we do egg based, so what we call egg sprint. And so that would be a great program for those ones. So it's not trying to get federal funding to develop, a technology or innovation, but if they need help generally with getting their business up and running, and we have some funding available through those programs as well, that might be a better fit for what you're talking about.
Perfect. Just trying to get a sense of, as we're helping producers, which
Sure.
grants or loans are best fitting for them. And so
Right.
that way they're not chasing after everything, but we can already get them lined up ahead of time. These
Right.
are the ones you need to look at or towards.
Right. Definitely. So yeah, in that package that I send, I'll send some information on Arrowhead generally and all of our programs, so you can take a look at that, and then some specific information on FAST that you can share with producers and clients that you work with.
And just out of curiosity, if there is a grant awarded, is there an overhead cost that Arrowhead then asks in return, or is everything free or underwritten otherwise?
Yep, we are funded to provide free support, so we don't take any equity, any stake. No, I don't think we charge for any of our programs outside of our like incubator services if businesses are renting space from us. So we really, it's our mission to provide these services for free because we want businesses to have access. So.
And aside from cruises, do you have any remote offices currently or work out of any of the NMSU field locations?
Sure. So I'm actually based out of Santa Fe. So we are around the state, and then we travel all over the state. So if you want us to come and do a workshop, we will come to you. Still no charge. We've got travel budgets in place to do that. And so, we understand it's been hard with COVID. It's opened up a lot of possibilities in terms of connecting to rural, but a big piece of New Mexico, and especially, ranchers and the ag-based community, is you have to build that trust and relationship in person. And so we're really looking forward to being able to go back out into the field and do those workshops in person. So we're happy to do that whenever. I think this fall is when we'll start transitioning back into in-person events.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, and John, I just saw your comment. Yeah, I'll send out the flyer and announcements for all of those dates I mentioned, and then also all the programs. So, but yeah, if you have any questions that come up, I'll make sure my email is available. Feel free to email me, call me. Happy to answer any FAST or Arrowhead related questions. And again, we're here to support you. And so it's also our mandate to serve the entire state with our services. And so however we can do that, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're happy to help.